everybody. Welcome to the RevTech Summit. With this session, I've got the one and only Tim Harsh, co-founder and CEO at Owler. Tim, how are you doing, man?
Doing great, Billy. Great to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here. We're going to be talking about sales intelligence, but before we hop into that, I mean, Owler, you guys are an amazing company. Recently acquired by Meltwater. Was that probably about year and a half, 2 years ago?
About two, exactly.
About two. Okay. And if you haven't used Owler, you might be living under a rock. But check it out. But tell us just a little bit first about yourself, and then how you guys started Owler before we get into it.
Yeah, well, we started Owler almost 13 years ago now, so it's been a long journey. But my background, I've been in the data space, the B2B data space, since the days of Jigsaw. I was originally an intern at Jigsaw. For anyone who remembers, that was crowdsourcing of contact information. This was before, LinkedIn was big and Zoom Info got big and all of that, where people would actually trade contact information. So you upload a record, I upload a record, and we can trade those. And actually worked on company information there. And Salesforce bought Jigsaw back in 2010 and had no interest in exploring company data. And I, as well as a few folks who were also at Jigsaw, including Jim Fowler, who was the founder of Jigsaw and one of the founders here at Owler as well, decided to go after company data and apply what we knew from crowdsourcing within the B2B space to this new data set where no one was really investing at the time. And so for the last 13 years, we've been working on that of, building out a community, building out a data set. It's global, all of it.
Awesome. I remember finding Owler, I think it was probably 2016 when I was working on my MBA. I had to find some information about private companies, and I was like, where do I go? I went back and talked to some of my friends from when I used to work at Inside Sales, and they're like, hey, check out this Owler thing. And it was awesome, just like a wealth of information. And then it's funny, you guys, it's genius. You kind of suck people into being like, oh, that's not right, about like companies you do know about. You're like, oh yeah, I know about them. That's not the revenue number. That's not the employee number, but this is. So
that's the
awesome.
Secret sauce.
Okay. Well, today we want to talk about sales automation, and you're actually you've rolled out some new products that are pretty interesting, and I'd love you to talk about them as we go through this. But we'll talk sales intelligence. Like, really, it's kind of, to me, a nebulous term. Like, it can mean one thing to somebody else, another thing to another group entirely. How do you define it? And like, what do you view as sales intelligence?
Yeah, so I may be biased by being in the data space for so long, but the way I think about it is, it's the data and technology that helps drive sales efforts. So whether that's, the CRM, whether that's, sales automation tools, or that's the underlying data that's feeding those and your sales efforts, it's kind of all inclusive of those in my mind.
Okay. All right. And then, I'd agree, like, hey, it's everything that's feeding up into it. What can you find? What, like, over the years, Jigsaw, Owler, they're definitely there in that sales intelligence. Like, if you don't have contact information or firmographic information about companies, you're kind of flying blind a little bit. But how have things evolved over the years? Like, there's Dun & Bradstreet forever. And then there's been a lot over the last 10, 20 years. But what have you seen as the evolution there?
I think it's been a long transition from, essentially, I view it as a spectrum of kind of ease of use. I mean, if you think back in the day, you have these big books or a Rolodex of information and using that. And, then it goes online, but it's this clunky interface, total mess. And now we're at the point where you can do searches and all of that, but you actually have intelligence behind it suggesting, hey, you should look at this piece of information. You should use this for your next conversation. And so it's just gotten easier and easier to use. And all of that is driving greater efficiency within the sales stack over the course of time. And I think that's been the biggest evolution that I've seen.
Okay. And then what tool, like, so, I mean, we can go as specific as like getting contact information down to, just like big high level company information. But what do you think are the most valuable things in terms of sales intelligence to your average sales rep?
Yeah, so I think, there's more information at everyone's fingertips than ever before these days. I mean, there's Owler, there's tons of other tools out there
Yeah.
to gather, whether it's firmographics or contact information or technographic information. Um, but the end goal is obviously being equipped and ready for action when you're about to hop on a call. And I think part of that, in that ease of use that we were talking about, leveraging the AI, the machine learning to really put it at sellers' fingertips. So you don't have to go spend 2 hours a day doing research. It's right
Yeah.
there, ready to go, and saving tons of time and increasing efficiency, which, all businesses care about these days more than ever.
Yeah. So okay, I agree with you. Like the 2 hours doing research for like one prospect or even a half hour on not even like somebody you're working with, just like maybe we'll get a deal, maybe not, especially when you're not in like an enterprise space, you're kind of more in an SMB motion. That's just, you're throwing money out the window
Right.
by having your sales team do that. Nothing frustrates me more than when I see our sales team and they're like, yeah, I've done all this research on, and I'm like, with our deal size, that just doesn't make sense to spend 2 hours, when we haven't had a conversation yet. Um, but like, how can we boost the performance using these tools? Like with Chat GPT, more generative AI, like it is getting easier to automate a lot of this in terms of sales intelligence and personalization. But what can sales reps be doing, or what can leaders be doing to enable their teams to say, okay, let's save this time. Let's not spend forever doing research and for personalization.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is arming the teams with tools, the right tools, and training about how to use them. Because
Yeah.
you could go off in a million different directions and use Chat GPT to write dozens of emails, but if you're not thoughtful about how you're actually applying that, I mean, we all get so many more emails today than even we did a few years ago, right? And it's because
Yeah.
this is really easy to do. You can type
Yeah.
a few prompts and data points into Chat GPT. We actually have a Chat GPT integration that makes it really easy. But if you're not actually personalizing it and have good process around how you're sending it and when you're sending it, all of those pieces, it's just going to go right into the trash folder, or even worse, spam. And so, I think that's where teams can gain the most efficiency is, okay, we have all these tools at our fingertips. Let's put together how we want to go about that strategically and create
Yeah.
more predictability in the pipeline as a result.
Okay. So are there any best practices you would share to say, okay, do these things so that we don't get the unsubscribe, the take me off your list replies, like what specifically would you recommend that reps be doing then as they're working through?
Yeah, so one of the things we've seen, both with our own team and with some customers that we partner with really closely is, looking at how your reps are currently spending their time today. And to your point, for certain deal cycles, maybe it makes sense for reps to be spending multiple hours, maybe even 5 hours for big enterprise
Yeah.
pitches, doing deep research, reading SEC filings, all of that. But for smaller sales motions, maybe it doesn't. And so deciding, okay, are our reps doing everything they can efficiently today? And if not, how do we arm them with some of these tools? And in our case, what we provide kind of front and center is the news and updates and firmographic information at reps fingertips. So you always know, you go look at a company, information's right there. I can pull that appropriately to put into an email and break through the noise by actually saying, hey, Billy, I saw that you have this recent initiative. Here's what I think we can do for you. And here's what's going on in the market, really proving value. So it's not just, hey Billy, the weather's great in Utah this week, right? And oh, you have this
Yeah.
company, let's work together. Those those don't go very far these days.
My favorite one that I get is, they'll pick one of the schools I went to and just be like, how about them Cougars, or how about them Broncos, or I'm
Right.
a giant, like, I love, I went to Boise State and BYU, love them both, but I'm a Cougar first, BYU guy. And my favorite is I get them, they're like, I'm a huge Broncos fan too. I'm like, well, I'm actually, not a huge Broncos fan, but I'm a fan.
Right. Yeah, you have to be smart about what data you're using these days.
Yeah. But if they talk to me about my business and they're like, hey, you guys are hosting this, looks really interesting, how can we add value? Dude, I'm in. Like, let's talk about that. So
Yeah. Yeah, well, and
okay.
what's going on in the market? What are your competitors
Yeah.
doing? Like, showing a level of investment on the seller's side goes even further in this world of just everyone can write an email in a split second.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, even around emails, our research, we do a lot of email sending out of our platform is, dude, short emails. Like, send something short if you want people to engage, like when you send, we've all gotten like I like to call it the epistle. When I get that sales email and it's like, I'm not going to read this, but that's a lot of scrolling that and I didn't ask for this. I never respond, to the epistle type email. But the short, like, hey, here's what's up. How can we add value? Maybe we can help you out. You got a chance is what the data has shown, and what just me as somebody who gets hit up all the time. I'm like, okay, I can work with that.
Yeah, I mean, especially with these new unsubscribe rules coming from Yahoo and Gmail, you don't want to get unsubscribed to these days, because then no future outreach is going into the inbox either.
Yeah, you gotta be a little more careful. So what about customer relationships using sales intelligence? Like, how can we use that more on the CS side? Because it's always cheaper to keep a customer than have to go replace them. How can CS teams and customer teams be leveraging the same type of thing?
Yeah, well, I think it starts in the same place of just being informed about what's going on with the customer, what's going on with their industry, and more narrowly their competitive set. Because
Yeah.
the worst thing, especially in these days of layoffs, different M&A things going on in the world, like, you sound totally tone deaf if you reach out and you're like, hey Billy, let's sign this $200,000 contract, and you reply back, hey Tim, I just had to lay off 25% of my team.
Yeah.
There's no way that conversation's going forward.
Yeah.
I emailed someone at UPS about that today, and they just did the big announcements. Like,
Yeah.
that's not going anywhere, and that just shows I don't know what I'm talking about. And so, from a CS perspective, I think the core is the same as personalization and knowing the industry, knowing the competitors, and what's going on before you get on that call. And again, that doesn't have to be hard these days. The information can be so easily accessible.
Yeah, I've done it now where you just kind of create your watch list. You get your updates, when new things happen. Pretty easy to do. One thing, as you're going through that, for our CS team, what we do is we're always asking our customers, like, what do you have that's new? Because we work with them on the marketing and sales side of things. And, do you have any new products, new initiatives, new campaigns? And, they'll share that with you, you can help them, your value add every time. And then when you call and email, they're paying attention, because they know it's not just, hey, this is a call to push more product on us. This is a call to add value. So
yeah, no one wants the time wasted these days. You want to be that trustworthy resource.
Oh, for sure. Nobody has time. Look at all the layoffs over the last 2 years. Everyone is expected to do more. If you still have if you're still an organization, like, I would bet you have more on your plate than you did 2 years ago, most likely. So, okay. So with automation, what's the best way to automate this? Because, like, it's great to, hey, I go in, I get the feed. I'm still typing that out. And like there needs to be a human touch, I feel like, in all of it. But the more we can automate it, the more you can do more, and you can handle more responsibility, and your sales reps can as well. So what are the best ways for them to automate personalization?
Yeah, so the reality is we're not yet at the golden point of AI where you don't have to do anything. There is some configuration involved, but it doesn't have to be a heavy lift of setting up those alerts. And that might be as simple as integrating with your CRM and
Yeah.
plugging it in so systems know where your accounts are and can say, okay, Billy has these 50 accounts. We're going to send him updates on those, and asking you, hey, we have all these different types of events we can send you updates on. What do you care about the most? And just to use the Aller example, that's something we do where you can quickly say, hey, these are the 25, 50, 10, whatever the number is, accounts that I really care about, and I want to know about M&A, layoffs, big product announcements, any fundraising, those types of things. And then the second those happen, you get alerted, whether it's within your CRM, so it's already within your workflow, or via email, so the information's at your fingertips. You don't have to go check every day and go to their company websites and figure that out. It's just there for you, and otherwise you can kind of set it and forget it. And I think that's the current state. But I think there's also some exciting stuff around the corner with some of the latest in AI that's going to make that even easier. Not too far off either.
Yeah, I mean, with AI, there are some really interesting things coming. You guys just rolled out your Owler AI.
We did.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so right now, I'll admit, it's kind of V1, but essentially it leverages all the data, the underlying data within Owler, so that when you're going to write an email to a prospect, it'll pull that in, and you'll have the facts at your fingertips. Here's the most recent important news. Here's how much revenue they're doing. Whether they raised a recent round of funding, all those things, so that when I reach out, again, to your point, I think personalization is the biggest thing these days. So don't just blindly copy all that over and say, hey, Billy, I see that you're doing, X in revenue and just launched this. Like that can come off not that great, but that email can be drafted up for you. You can edit it, add that personalization, and then send it off. And then you are coming off as that informed, trustworthy partner to truly, work with and build a relationship with.
I like that. Like it's all just right there, easy, already pulled in. Then you're not spending forever working on it. You're just like, okay, here are the highlights. Let me work this in is what seems appropriate. And you may even see the highlights and realize, like we talked about earlier, probably not the best time to reach out, actually. Let's circle back in a month,
Right. Exactly.
Okay. One last question, do you have any concerns about reps like over relying on technology? Because I love technology. I'm sure you do. You're a technologist yourself. There are times like I kind of wonder, if we try to automate too much. But I want to get your perspective on that, because it's a balance, is what I think. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a really hot topic these days, and I don't think we'll know the answer for a few years, but I share your concern that if people over rely on this stuff, it just comes off really, really poorly. I mean, just to use an example, in our early days, we were InfoArmy Incorporated. We changed our name 2 years in, changed the model a little bit, and have been Owler for the last 11 years. I still, to this day, I kid you not, get emails saying, hey, Tim, as CEO of InfoArmy, here's my pitch. I'm like, whoa, like, one, where'd you get this information? Two, like, double check this. Like, we haven't been called that in literally over a decade. And so you've got to at least check the facts, or know you're coming from a reliable data source, and then just do that read through to just know it all makes sense. But otherwise, I think there's a massive ROI as a partner. I think there's also a lot of concern about like, oh, automation is going to take all of our jobs. But I couldn't agree with you more, Billy. Like, it's all about the personalization these days, and that's where the human aspect is key.
Yeah, it's so funny that 10 years we rebranded about 2 years ago, and every day I still get like, "Hey, we can help you at chat funnels," and I'm just like, oh, that was a minute ago. I'll look for those in 10 years. But yeah, like the automation is great and it helps get a lot done. But like if you go to Chat GPT and ask them to, like, it'll write you a pretty good sales email if you're like, "Hey, I need something about this." Like, it'll be okay, but it's decidedly average unless you really go through and edit, like, because they're just pulling like the average of everything on the internet to write it out. You still got to take a minute and just like give it a little bit of a human touch on a lot of things is how I feel. So
100%.
all right, dude, is there anything before we wrap up that you would say, "Hey, Billy was smart, he would have asked me about this and we need to talk about"?
I think you hit all the key ones. I mean, these are exciting topics to talk about. I'm excited to hear, what everyone else thinks about the AI question and automation versus over reliance as well over time. And yeah, I would love to check in a few years from now and see where that lands.
Yeah, and we'll see where we are. All right, Tim. Well, thank you so much for joining us for RevTech, and we'll hand you guys off to the next session.
Thank you, Billy.